Alright, welcome back. Hope you're having a good day. It's my Ficus Philippinensis, I guess is how you say it. The original angle I started with there has been the front I've been kind of working with. I have considered changing it to this angle here. I think it's a little bit better than this one, just simply I think it seems like a little more of a balanced tree that way. I'm going to go ahead and give you the history of the tree here. I got it in March of 2019. These days, if I buy a healthy tree, I never repot it right away, but right then I did just kind of go into the repotting mode, repotted it right away. So it's been in this pot ever since, so a little over 6 years now. The last few pictures along the way there should be from where it had fruit on it earlier this year. And I actually intended to do a video, do a repotting video when it did have that red fruit on there. It was like right at the end. It was the first time that it usually is either green, turns black and falls off, or it gets kind of orange and then falls off. This year they got red. Not really sure why. That's the first time it's ever done that. And then honestly, I've just never really had the motivation or time to go ahead and give it a repot. For some reason, you may actually have even noticed that this branch here seemed a lot more lush in some of those pictures. I'm not sure why. This side has kind of kept its health and this side is not. This one is the lowest branch and it's actually coming off of the main trunk here. If you look really closely, this branch is coming off of an arrow root, and this one is kind of, this part here, this is a separate branch, and this part here is actually coming out from between the aerial root and the trunk. So I don't know why it's kind of losing interest in this one. I think it's about time for the repot. I think 6 years is enough. I think it usually gets much more vigorous growth, like several flushes through the summer, and it's really only had one this year. All those red fruits kind of came off, and right now it's kind of getting its best spurt that it's had. And so it's a ficus, it's a tropical, and so now's the time to do it. I'm going to go ahead and start off. Usually, some of my trees, I kind of go with I give them a hard prune, and then when I see them kind of recover a little bit, I go ahead and assume that they're active. Seeing how this thing's been in the same pot for like 6 years and everything, and it's got plenty of growth now. This tree has plenty of health in it. I'm going to cut the apex back much harder than I'm going to do the lower branches. So I'm going to go ahead and just start with the lower branches here, and mainly just try to take out some of the straight up growth that comes along, and of course the straight down growth, and just any little twigs that are kind of like overlapping each other and everything. Trying to be kind of delicate here on this one, so I do want to save this branch, and then just kind of go around here to the rest of them. Alright, and before I got started there, I probably should have mentioned that with microcarpa and many other type of ficus, you could take everything down the bare bones, just have the branches here with no leaves, and they nearly all, especially if they're healthy when you start, they'll always just bud right on back. Benjamin's a little different. Usually the general consensus is to leave a little bit more green so that it doesn't just like give up on those branches. I think the worst that would happen to me is if I didn't leave any green, instead of actually budding out here, it would just start budding here. I do kind of want to save the branches. There's a thick enough trunk here. I don't want to start all over from nothing. I am going to be a little more aggressive in the apex. I think what I'm going to do is get in the apex here and go ahead and take out anything, obviously, that has to go from the inside up, and then I'm just going to cut that down some, and that'll always back bud because that is the apex, and it is a very apically dominant plant. Alright, so now at this point here, I worked most of the branches from the inside out here in the apex, and then now what I'm going to do is just cut it back super aggressively from the kind of the outside in, if you will. Realize that wasn't part of the apex, just some bigger leaves there. I'm still just trying to leave the growing tips there. Sometimes I get Edward Scissorhands happy and just start going to town. But what I was going to point out is that with the ramification that's in the apex, that would be a super cool tree. I've done some air layering experiments and none of them worked out. And so I'm not losing the whole apex of this tree with an experiment and everything. Plus, even though that would be a cool tree, it's still got that ugly scar there and everything. I'll just leave it up there. I did get another one, and I remember like the whole idea of even getting the other one was to kind of, I don't know, just kind of learn from the mistakes I made on this one. March 2019, I mean, I didn't know anything about the hobby until December 2018, just before. And that's when I got this tree in that March following the seed kit that was given to me from my daughter. So I did want to learn from those mistakes, but anyhow, that's a whole nother video there. I've made plenty of mistakes with that one. And then the last thing I'll do here before I start repotting is this tree has, well, first off, it's got this air plant here, which I like. It's also got all this lichen. And I know some people say they don't like the lichen, and I actually see a lot of people, say, oh, you got to clean that off your tree. And I see some videos of people doing that to their own tree. I'm a little conflicted with it just simply because we're supposed to be taking smaller trees. Here's the other consideration I have for the front, just as I'm talking here. But trees, we're supposed to be trying to make them look, taking an old tree, or I'm sorry, a young tree, and trying to make it look older. And the old trees have lichen on them and everything, but so I'm leaving them on some of my trees. Some of them it's got really thick. There's a thick piece on a branch somewhere around here. I might have rubbed it off as I was pruning, and sometimes when it gets super thick, it does get a little out of place. I think on this tree here, maybe it's not a good look for it, so I'm going to try to clean that up a little bit, and then after that I'll get to repotting here. Alright, I think I've done this one time before, and I do it with an old toothbrush and some water. And somebody suggested that I use some vinegar and just to make sure to protect the soil, to keep anything from getting the soil and hence to the roots. Since I'm repotting this, I've always been kind of scared about using vinegar because you're not supposed to allow it to get to the roots and everything. But since I'm repotting this, I just went ahead and did a little mixture of water and vinegar here. And I'm just going to see how this works out. Alright, hopefully you can tell here I've done a little work with the camera off. Got most of it gone from up there. After soaking it, just kind of come through and hitting it with some good elbow grease here. Alright, and just one last look at it here before the repotting. Still a little wet there from the scrubbing, but can see the difference. Alright then, here we go. Before I do get started, I'll give you a closer look at some of this. This was when I originally bought it in the size smaller bulb pot, and that was when I was really new in the hobby. I get the idea. I probably just kind of teased the roots out a little bit and then just put it in there with some fresh soil. Was when I first started getting good substrate, but I was getting the cheaper substrate that was available at the time. So it will be a hard mess going on in here. Decide how aggressive I'm going to get once I get in here. I'm going to try to address some of these twisting roots and everything. But of course, first thing I got to do is get it out of the pot. I know I've pruned these recently just simply because I do like to rotate my trees out there in the sun. And at one point, this was actually stuck to the cinder block it sits on, and I couldn't turn it around. So I had to get it loose from there. Out of here. All right, let's see what we got going on here. Still some white healthy roots down here circling. Still lots of ants in here. That is very hard there though. I've taken out some of these circling roots. Now this one, I've decided I'm gonna take it off right there. I was thinking about coming out to the bend, but it'll always, like if it comes out the way it should, it would always push out that way, and just thinking maybe if I take out some of these on the way down, it might kind of open up the bottom a little bit better. Let's see here. That off while I'm here. And then there's these two here. They kind of did the same thing that one did. I was probably a little timid there 6 years ago and didn't cut them off. Probably gonna have to take this one off here now and get a little closer to the trunk in a minute. That just goes back under there too. Take that out. Tight root ball here. Let's go ahead. There we go. Oof. Alright, so I'd like to be able to cut a little more of that off altogether as I get a little bit deeper here. So I'm just going to leave that on there for just a second. I do have my bigger root hook this time. I don't really break it out all that often, but I know with this being in that turfus-based soil, it's going to be rough. Man. Alright, let's see now. Now, that is pretty much what I'm considering is probably all the new roots. And then this is probably almost pretty close to the original root ball. Because like I said, back in those days I was pretty timid with the repots. Gonna have to get a little deeper with it for sure. Still got this piece hanging out up here too. There went that branch. Alright, I did a lot of work with the camera off there. Sometimes switching back and forth is really difficult because I gotta wash my hands before I touch my camera too much. I did break this branch. Sometimes when I do things like that, I probably even said something to myself about edit that part out. But this was actually a branch. I'll try to include a little picture here. It was sticking straight up. I did a wedge cut and I brought it down. That's why it's got a weak collar there. I should have remembered that before I went grabbing on it, trying to mess around. So I don't want to go too much more rough with it. I am well beyond the original root ball when I first got it. And just as big as the trunk has gotten, I don't really see the need to get too much deeper with it. I took care of all those crossing roots. I might trim that up a little bit more, but I'll wait until after I hose it off here. I'm going to go ahead and take it out. It won't be bare rooted just simply because it's way too much original nursery soil on here to be really bare rooted. But I'm going to try to blast off some more of that dirt out of there. All right, got her hosed off. Looking pretty good. Definitely really can't go all that much deeper than that. That's pretty much kind of part of a stump here. Now, as I was looking at these three roots here, I definitely watched these form. I think in some of the earlier pictures I actually saw this one just getting started. And it does seem to kind of be out of place with this one here. And this was one of the reasons why I picked out this tree, is it had that kind of twisted around there and everything. And it also just kind of leads to a little awkward spot there too. So I'm going to take that off. And then go ahead and get that off there with it. If I had an outdoor setup, I'd probably go ahead and hose that little section off there again, but I don't, so I'll just have to kind of deal with that. But that's okay. And let's go ahead and get her repotted here. Alright, and I've already got a good layer of substrate in the bottom of the pot here. I had some rectangular training pots that it might temporarily look a little bit better in, but if I have it in a round and I'm still undecided about the front, I feel like I can kind of play with it a little bit more. It's nowhere near refinement or anything like that. I may not ever have anything in refinement. I might be a beginner forever since I'm refusing to go to Japan and everything, but anyhow. Right back into the same pot. Alright, and before I get a look at the rest of it here, just kind of show you what the new Nebario look like and how I hope to develop from there with all that nursery soil and all that soil with the turfus in it now gone. Really should start to look a lot better. Alright, and then one final look at it here. Right there in the crotch of these, their ale root and the actual trunk here, still staying wet as the other stuff kind of dries out. Some of the, you can see some of the lichen again, but it does look better than it was. Take a look at that other front. If I ever decide, I mean, I don't know, let me know in the comments if you think that makes a better front than the other one. If I ever decide to or have to lose this branch that I loosened up, I think I have to make that the other front. And speaking of this other branch, just realized I had part of the top cut off there. I like to look at this myself when I'm done looking at that other front and everything. And let me see what I can do for this branch here. Alright, so got some thinner wire there. Got it wrapped around that piece there and the strong piece. And then just try to pull that back up straight. And wrap it around up here. And I think that'll be alright. Now that I've got it straight here again, I'll kind of show you what that originally looked like and why it still does seem kind of awkward from it. I thought over time it would kind of fill in there. Probably should have just cut it off to begin with. And then, you know, hate to keep repeating myself, but again, thinking about coming back around. If I use that as the front, that would be this branch here, and that would actually just be a back branch missing. So maybe after it recovers one day, I may decide to go ahead and cut that off. It would also kind of eliminate the big chop scar there too. Time will tell. Alright, so that was July 26th. Today is August 19th. It's a little longer than 3 weeks. And this thing really recovered very, very quickly. Very happy with the way it looks. And honestly, there's a microcarpa that I repotted probably about 2 weeks before this one. And I was about just as rough with it and everything. And it's already got more foliage on it than this one does. But it's still like really loose in the pot. I've already put this guy back out in the sun. It's already tight in the pot. This is the branch. I know when this is the branch I broke while I was repotting. Not broke. I just separated the collar there. That branch was sticking up like that at one point, and I should have remembered that I did a little wedge cut to bring it down. And that collar is always going to be a little weak spot on the tree. But it's got the foliage back on there. Hopefully that recovers fully. Gonna let it just kind of run for a while. You know, get itself established in the pot and everything. But very happy with the way it looks. And except for the fact that it went right back in the old pot and everything else, I think it's a pretty good improvement.